Good evening, and wherever you're joining us from, a very warm welcome to Stroud Book Festival 2020. I'm Caroline Sanderson, I'm Artistic Director of the festival. Tonight, we're thrilled to present an event with award-winning poet, novelist and essayist Kei Miller, in which he'll read from his remarkable new collection, In Nearby Bushes. In a moment, I'll be handing over to renowned Stroud poet Adam Horovitz, who will be introducing Kei. But first, just a few words of love for Stroud Arts Festival, who are sponsoring this event tonight. Stroud Arts Festival is in effect the grandparent of all the thriving Stroud festivals. Founded in 1946, it celebrates its 75th birthday next year, a marvellous achievement. In fact, its 5-year-old grandchild, Stroud Book Festival, would not exist were it for Stroud Arts Festival providing the impetus for getting us started. So we salute them and we thank them for their support. And now I'd like to welcome Kei Miller to Stroud Book Festival and hand over to Adam Horovitz. Over to you, Adam.
And read English at the University of the West Indies before completing an MA at Manchester Metropolitan University and a PhD in Glasgow. His debut collection of poetry, Kingdom of Empty Bellies, was released in 2006, followed by There Is an Anger That Moves, A Light Song of Light, the Forward Prize winning A Cartographer Tries to Map a Way to Zion, and most recently, In Nearby Bushes. He's also published 3 novels, The Same Earth, The Last Warner Woman, and Augustown. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome him to Stroud Book Festival, if only via the wonders of the internet. Kei's now going to read for 20 minutes or so, and then there will be questions. And please, if you want to ask Kei a question and you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment under the video stream on YouTube. It will be emailed to me and I'll read it to Kei and say who it's from. So please welcome Kei Miller. Kei Miller.
I'll imagine applause happening. Thanks for having me. So I think I'll read a few poems from just the first section of In Nearby Bushes, which is a section called Hair, which is a weirdly difficult word for me because I know enough about linguistics that I know that British people pronounce that word very differently than Jamaicans. So H-E-R-E, I think what British people do is it's the H sound followed by a short I sound followed by a schwa. So you say hair, and Jamaicans we just say hair, and the same word as hair on your head and hair the rabbit. It's all the same word. So I'm sorry if it sounds strange when I say it. All right, so let's just start. In Nearby Bushes, by the way, that's a phrase that keeps on coming up on news reports in Jamaica. So you'll often hear that the body was discovered in nearby bushes, or even more gruesome that the woman was raped in nearby bushes, the thieves escaped to nearby bushes. And I was trying to put language to that place that we always hear about in the news. And so I'll start with this poem, which is the shortest poem in the book. It's just called Translation of a Jamaican Curse. And as kids, when we're fighting in Jamaica, you often say, when you get very angry, you say to the person you're fighting with, you say, go dead a bush, go and die in the bushes. So translation of a Jamaican curse, and the epigraph is that curse, go dead a bush. Or else you could say, may death wait for you in the undergrowth, the understory. May you drag yourself there like a wounded dog towards the hem of hedges, and there, where is the darkness? Where is the furnace of worms? Where are the fallen leaves? May the world above you be a buzzing, colorless thing. May you feel the earth's rhythm and weather and wear. May you think of all places I have ended here. Here where blossoms the night. And you're just going to hear lots of names of plants that you might find in the vegetation of Jamaica. So they're very strange words happening here. Here where blossoms the night. Here where blossom the orchids. 220 in variety. Some have adapted to bone dry places, to being purple amongst the stone. Here where blossom Jamaican ladies of the night, I mean the flowers, their petals the color of weddings, their perfume the scent of parlors. There is much that blossoms in these bushes and much that rots like Jamaican ladies of the night. I no longer mean the flowers. Here where grows the hog apple, the hog money, here where wild hogs rut at the roots of things. The trees sometimes are grunting. Here where you can find the tuna, here the monkey's hand, the cow's tongue. Such seem not to be the bushes, but they are as much a part as heart. The dog's tail as much a part as the broken bottles and burnt cars. Is that the right way to say it? Especially here, should I have said the heap-a-brook bottle and the plenty bun-up car here that cannot be held by the small arms of language here, that cannot be held by the small arms of English here, that cannot be held by the English, but how they tried. Here is Nanny, or where Nanny found them, where you might find her still if you believe in Kumina, the never dead of spirits. Nanny, do you know her story? Her peculiar ability to catch bullets and where. Some say she could even shoot them back, but I think this was just a metaphor. The magnificent stink of her farts that, coming across a white man, she could just lift up her frock tail and clear the bush of English hair, whereas the inscrutability, the wild and passionate uproar here, whereas the horror here, war here, where blossoms the knife here, where blossoms the blade here, where glistens the blood, the wild mint grows here, and the wild pawpaw and the wild sage and the wild Caesar obia. So much wildness can be found here where creeps the cerasee, the love bush that strangles trees here, where shines the raw moon, being folk etymology, original word Ramoon. Here, where you'll find the much improved names of things, the slow greening and rootsing of Latin. Semen contra becomes semi-contract. Semper vivum becomes simple Bible, becomes single Bible. Let the trees say amen. Here, where blossoms the ginger, danger here, where you must pray against the loud bark of cedar. Seek God in the orchids, ask help of archangels, though here archangels are only flowers, their petals the color of weddings, their perfume the scent of parlors, by which I mean the heavily powdered dead, this landscape like a wreath laid against itself. Here where blossoms the natto, here where blossoms the nettle, here where blossoms the night. Uh, there was no weird feedback just happening. Sorry. No, we're good. All right. Here we run the wild dare. Just a small bit of explanation. In 1988, and for what reason, I don't quite know. I think it's because Jamaica has a chip on its shoulders and it's always trying, in very strange ways, to prove that it is a first world country, or I don't know, developed in strange ways. But someone decided it was a good idea before Christmas to bring down 6 reindeer to Jamaica, as one does, for a Christmas show. Uh, and so they brought down these 6 reindeer, and they had this great Christmas show in the tropics of Jamaica. And so this was in 1987, and the deer, stayed on for in 1988 as well because you couldn't just ship them back. And then a hurricane hit Jamaica, and uh, this destroyed the cages, or the little place where they're keeping the reindeer. And so the reindeer all escaped. They escaped into the same mountains where the Maroons had escaped in the days of slavery. Uh, a recent, census, I didn't know that you had reindeer census, but a recent census of reindeer in Jamaica estimated the population of reindeer had now blossomed to around 6,000, uh, which I find weirdly beautiful.
Hmm.
So here we run the wild deer. Here we run the wild deer, the Caribbean caribou. Does this surprise you? Deer without snow, not even the possibility of snow. Here, they are like echoes of a long story, the brutal history of displace, which is not to say they are not their own stories, but that they know, as we do, the tightness of ships and how to lose whole continents and how to be wary of white men wielding whips and how to end up here. There is such a thing as the perfect storm. It includes an actual storm and deer in weak cages and nearby bushes. How wonderful to escape into hills that have always been escape. They are the new maroons. At dawn, they descend on quiet hooves to loot from the estates, but maybe that isn't fair. I shouldn't say estates, but farms. On the 7 o'clock news, a man spreads his arms to show the field of ruined carrots. Have mercy, them damn every God Almighty thing. And then he faces camera, but is looking somewhere beyond the absent harvest, his mind lighting on memory. But Jesus Christ, he breathes. Them so pretty, his face now a curious thing, as if ashamed or puzzled he should recognize such beauty, the nobility of their being, or accepting too late, this may have been their payment, the price of carrots, to be seen. It is easier to hear the deer whose sounds are like doors on old hinges at nights. Listen, the landscape is creaking, as if these bushes open themselves to drunk men just now stumbling home. Here, where the wild deer roam. Here, where dried branches may not be dried branches, but the majesty of antlers. Here, where white flowers may not be white flowers, but the blossoming of their tails, the strange warning of deer we do not see well, but we sense. You are here with us in this strange, strange land. Will you come now to the river? Will you teach us King Alpha's song and how to survive Babylon, how to belong where we do not belong? All right, I'll probably read 2 more poems. One last poem from that section here, and just a poem in the middle. So, a psalm for gay boys. And again, just a little bit of the story behind this poem. I don't know how, but I ended up watching a Facebook Live testimony from somebody, from a young man in Jamaica who I'd never met before. And had been forced to leave his community because he was gay, which surprised me. I mean, Jamaica has a reputation for being homophobic, but they had made so much progress in recent years that this managed to surprise me still, that it always manages to surprise you when you see these kind of roots of evil still blossoming and presenting themselves. And so though Jamaica has had that reputation, in 2020 or 2019, this still surprised me. And he said one thing, and I was in the middle of writing this, and it obviously had an impact on me, and that becomes the epigraph for this. And I'll say it in Jamaican Creole, which is near to English, so I think you'll understand, but I'll translate it. But he said, when me leave, me have to go through the bushes, cause if me did take the road, them would have killed me. When I left, I had to walk through the bushes, because if I'd gone by the road, they would have killed me. So a psalm for gay boys. Here that is the confession and the truth and the softness amongst the thorns, where the married men roam at night, their trousers unzipped, where we are kissed by the same lips that curse us, where we suck the salt from each other's necks, but only at night, where we hide, where we are never hidden. Where are the shadows being our refuge and strength, a present help on the day of judgment. Where is the judgment? Where is no judgment? Where is the escape? Where is the escape, but only at night, when the married men chase us and curse us with the same lips where we run to, where we stop running, where men hang their jackets in trees, where the moon reveals the shapes of shoulders floating like Scott's apostrophe to pain, a landscape of strange lynchings. Where is the sobbing? Where is the eye? Where we trace our fingers against each other's bare and trembling backs, where we kneel, where our mouths are full of things harder than prayers. Where is the away from home and the way home and the roadway in the wilderness and the way where there was no way, where we come to again and again and again here, that is the limbered land, a place between places, the ends of the earth, here, that is the hear my cry, O Lord, my God, attend now to my needs. And the last poem that I'll read for you is in the second section. And it's a poem that kind of carries over from the Cartographer. It's another place name poem. And I keep on writing these poems that pretend to be dictionary definitions, where I explore just the strange histories of places in Jamaica. This poem was commissioned because Buckingham Palace had put out a large display of gold, and the Poetry Society commissioned a poet to write a poem in commemoration of this gold, and this was what was produced from that. And I'm going back to a place name in Jamaica that obviously has to do with gold. Wait, sorry. Sorry. Were you hearing somewhere coming over the line?
No.
Oh, sorry, that it was just me. So place name, Aracabessa. Origins disputed, but most likely leave over from the Spanish ora cabeza, golden head. Though what gold was here, other than light glinting off the bay, other than bananas bursting out from red flowers, though this too is disputed. Not the flowers, but the origin of bananas. They may have come here with Columbus on a ship which in 1502 slipped into Aracabessa the way grief sometimes slips into a room. In those days, the sailor tried to name the island Santiago, as if not knowing we already had a name in another language, a language whose speakers would soon all die, though this too is disputed, not the deaths, but the completeness of genocide. For consider, if you will, such leave over words as hurricane, consider barbecue, consider Jamaica, land of wood and water, but not of gold. Someone please go back time and tell Columbus in Taino there is no word for gold. Christopher in Italiano Cristoforo Colombo, in Espanol Cristobal Colón. A teacher once told me colon is a root word for colonist. And though I know that was false etymology, there is some truth to it. Aracabessa, place where you might find such tranquil villas as Golden Ridge, Golden Cloud, Golden Eye, longtime home of Ian Fleming, who sat there on cliff's edge, the morning's breakfast brought to him by a woman named Doris, the scent of ackee and crisp fried breadfruit wafting up to his nostrils, while between his teeth he bit a number 2 pencil all the time, looking out to sea as if fishing for a story, maybe a man, an incredible man, let's call him Bond. James Bond, who knew 007 wasn't actually Scottish, but a barefoot boy from St. Mary, Jamaica. Like so many others, he too migrated, the brutish winter cooling his complexion down to white. Such stories, Goldfinger, Golden Eye, the man with a golden gun. Did you never stop to wonder where all this gold came from? Did you never stop to ask what was found in El Dorado? Well, let me tell you, not a nugget, not an ounce of ore, but light gilding the bay, and perhaps bananas, and perhaps ackee, and such language as could summon wind to capsize Columbus's ships. And if that's not gold, then what is? And that's me.
Kai, that was magnificent. It's so good to hear these. I mean, I've heard you read before, but not from this book, and that was extraordinary. And there's something much more lyrical this time. There's a certain feel, especially with Here Where Blossoms the Night. I mean, you said before that Jean Binta Breeze was an influence, but I could actually hear some of her song style come through, coming through in places in that. It's a very beautiful piece.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you.
Which leads me to my first question, which is, I mean, I mentioned Jean, and I mean, you've recommended to me in the past Jamaica Kincaid's fierce little book, A Small Place.
Oh, yeah.
Are there what other writers have influenced you? I mean, from the Caribbean and from beyond as well.
Oh, wow. I think in my solar system of poets, my own constellation, the ones that are really large, are Lorna Goodison, the Jamaican poet, who I think that's the most obvious influence. I think people can actually look at the work and say, "Oh, that's obviously Goodison right there." And the other two, which shine equally bright lights, and are almost as big as Goodison, but I don't think they are always as apparent, is Kamau Brathwaite, who is probably more obvious in this collection than the others.
Yes.
And the American poet W.S. Merwin. I think those three. I mean, with all poets, there are lots of poets that we keep on going back to, but those three, I think, shine very, very large for me as kind of touchstones.
Yeah. No, yeah, no. That certainly shows in Lorna Goodison. I hadn't really connected that, and I should have. You were saying earlier about your interest in linguistics. Your writing often plays with different and sometimes opposing voices, such as the Rastaman and the cartographer in A Cartographer Tries to Map a Way to Zion, or the buried voices found within snippets of journalism in nearby. Trying to say in nearby bushes is difficult. In nearby bushes. I mean, the music of language, is often very specific to the place the writer grew up. So I'd be interested to know how coming to the UK, was it 16, 17 years ago, affected the music of your use of language, and actually whether coming here kind of changed the way you used other voices as well.
Yeah. Oddly, I don't know if I can answer that question. Just because I feel certain that there must have been some kind of change, that I must have responded to that change in environment. And it's not in ways that I am completely cognizant of. And that's probably because of a lie that Jamaicans tell themselves, that I think already in Jamaican culture, there are so many different voices happening. And so there's the very Creole voice. There is my own voice from my own upbringing, which is just quite frankly a very middle class Caribbean voice. Which, I mean, sometimes I get weirdly offended in this country because people don't recognize my natural speaking voice as obviously Caribbean. They might say, "Oh, you're from America," or "You're from." I just no, it's Jamaican. It's just Jamaican middle class. We have that as well. And so I think but the lie that Jamaicans tell themselves is that the Jamaican middle class voice is essentially British, which it clearly isn't. And so sometimes people from my background coming to the UK will obviously shift their voices and trying to make themselves more understandable, but they are not as cognizant of it as someone else. They think they're speaking exactly the same as they spoke back home. And so the small shifts that happen might not register immediately. And so sometimes when I'm back in sometimes the small things that happen. I'm trying to think of an example. Like being back in the Caribbean and saying something as small as castle. And it's not until everyone around you barks out laughing, that you go, "Oh my God, my pronunciation of castle has changed."
Yeah.
What's that about? But it'll be something even smaller than that, some small inflection. And that's about speech, but how does that move over into my writing? I'm not sure. And it's only because I think I am already so aware from only digging into the well of Jamaican language and Jamaican sounds, you are aware of so many patterns that I'm aware of. I'm aware of my middle class Jamaican English. I'm aware of a more urban Jamaican English, which British people might be more familiar with. I'm aware of a rural register of my mother, and I'm trying to layer so many different versions of Jamaican voices that I get so caught up in that project that I don't recognize how the experience of British English might be adding to that layering. It's not to say that it's not happening, but it's just that I'm not conscious of it.
On a more, level, perhaps, I mean, how has it changed the way you write other people's voice when you're adopting the voice of the cartographer, for example?
You see, the cartographer just okay. That's an example of the cartographer for me just has my voice.
Okay.
It's if I'm moving towards an English register, I just think, and because I think the cartographer is me, and I am writing against me and my own education and my own background,
right?
Which is weird. Because this is a weird thing. In Britain, everyone thinks I'm the Rasta man. In Jamaica, everyone recognizes me immediately as a cartographer. So that's an odd thing that happens. So the cartographer is me, and so I don't change my voice. It's just me.
Okay. No, it's interesting to know because the differences of opinion. It's just interesting to tease out where that comes from.
Mm.
Thank you. Going a little further on this, the narrator in Augustown talks about the language of old-time stories, things that have never been written down, that live only in the recesses of people's minds. It kind of strikes me that in Nearby Bushes, this is its strongest and strangest sometimes when exploring those recesses, particularly in the passages of erasure. The erasure of journalistic text, bringing out the little hidden sparks of sadness and shock and sorrow. And I'm interested to know how you arrived at that form and how it drove the book.
I don't know. It just that it's still weird to me that I wrote the book. Because I think it all got written in. It was all conceived and written in a kind of time space that I would never recommend. I would never recommend to any of my students for writing a collection. But everything again from conception to writing the last poem probably took 6 months.
Wow.
And absolutely this moment of reading something in an article and feeling so incredibly moved and incredibly angry about this thing that all the poems fitted in at once. And it's not that some of these poems I haven't been playing around for a long time. I've always wanted to write a poem about the reindeer in Jamaica. And you know how poems work, that these small ideas are happening in the background. And then you arrive at a project and you go, oh my God, the reindeer belong to the nearby bushes. That's how I finally draw from that file and I finally write this poem that I've been trying to write for 15 years.
Yeah.
And so there is something that was so instinctive and cloudy about the writing of this book that felt just otherworldly to me, or a kind of mania or a kind of possession, in a way that the other books have been just a lot more careful and a lot more thought through and revised and edited and carefully, strategies carefully deployed.
Yeah.
But I know for this, I really just immersed myself in these newspaper articles, and there were so many hundreds of them, and I think probably instinctively I knew that because so much of the narrative was coming from this source, that I didn't want to bury that source completely. I didn't want to translate it too much, and so in some way the book had to carry the evidence of these articles that was bearing this tragedy. And I think similarly with the Cartographer Tries, the Map Way to Zion. I mean, you asked me before about these different voices and putting them in opposition. I think it's because I find music in dissonance.
Mm.
And there's something about just that thing of taking a kind of text that is not obviously musical. So, like in the Cartographer, there's so much theory and so much a kind of academic text happening against the more kind of obviously musical Rastafari sounds.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you create dissonance and you make them work against each other rather than always trying to find resonance and harmony, trying to actually go for discord that sounds good. It's it's like being obsessed with a song like Nina Simone. It's like, how do you make a bad note sound so good? Uh, it's kind of my obsession, and I think that there was something similar again happening with this collection. It was, how do you take the flatness of journalism, just the starkness of journalism, and how do you make music out of it? And I think that was those instincts moved towards the form that emerged.
It was very exciting to read. I've seen that done before, but not often as well. Because some really surprising and shocking little moments came out of those highlighted letters and words.
Oh, good. I mean, I'm glad people took the time to follow it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. On a slightly lighter note, I noticed on Facebook a rather nonchalant post from you about the film adaptation of Augustown. I suspect you might have been a little more excited than you were letting on. Would you like to say more about that?
Well, this has been in the works for a little while. I think they made this announcement when obviously Steve McQueen jumped on board. Not as a major figure in his name is there as executive producer. I don't think it's an extremely hands-on thing, but he seemed a lot more excited than I did. I'm excited. But it seems to me one of that I'm learning to contain that excitement, because it seems the movie is a long process. I mean, I've never seen that there's a moment of them acquiring rights, and then there's a moment of them trying to turn it into a script. And I mean, all of this is major work happening. They're trying to get funding. They're trying to get a script writer. They're trying to do this. They're trying to get people on board. None of this is. But anyway, who's going to star in it? I'm like, it's nowhere near that. So I think I'm trying to contain my excitement for the long haul that this whole process of making a movie is going to be, which looks like it's years and it's years, and at different times or different points you can allow yourself to feel the excitement, but you can't let that turn into you thinking that, oh my God, next year I'm going to go to the movies and it's going to be on, because that it's so much longer than that,
Yeah,
longer than
absolutely.
that. But I love translations. I think that's such a big part of my process, translating something into something else. Translating the flatness into music, translating theory into melody, translating newspaper articles into something that is whimsical and light. I love the process of seeing how people encounter work and translate it. So it's just kind of naturally, even though it's my own work, so that alone is exciting.
Yeah.
I think because that is such a huge interest in me, it's doubly exciting because of that. Just to see how do you do it? How do you approach someone else's work and make it into something else?
Yeah. The studied nonchalance was very entertaining. We've had a couple of questions come in from the audience. First up, Camilla Hale asks, "Is your poetry mined in Jamaica?"
Is my poetry mined? M-I-N-E-D?
M-I-N-D, yeah.
Oh, is my poetry? Oh, is my poetry mind? My poetry, yeah. Uh yes, I think more or less. But huh, how to answer that question? I think more or less yes. But Jamaica becomes a linguistic space for me. And not it's so it's not always the physical space of the Caribbean. I think how we speak is how we see the world. And so that Jamaican-ness follows me everywhere. It's
Mm.
that I will look on that and not on that. That's just we are processing the world through language all the while. And so because my language is and it's not just the other thing I'd say is that it's not just Jamaican. It is mostly Jamaican, but it really is the Caribbean. Uh, and and that happens if someone is from the Caribbean and they notice me moving throughout the Caribbean, then they would be more conscious, probably more than a British person, of my accent slightly shifting depending on where in the Caribbean I am,
Mm.
and and I think that comes back to the heritage of being from the Caribbean. The literary heritage is not related, is not uh, doesn't stop at one island, and so if you're from the Caribbean, you're reading Walcott, you're reading Earl Lovelace, who is hugely important to me. You're reading Sam Selvon,
Mm.
and all of these feel like they are equally your heritage, but because those voices are so important to you, the slight shifts in those accents become important to you as well. And so, yeah, I would say the linguistic space of the Caribbean is where my poetic or certainly my literary mind is,
Yeah.
because it's how I process the world.
Another question from an audience member, Thomas Hollingsworth, asks, what inspired you to write The Cartographer Maps His Way to Zion? Thomas read it the other day and thought it was a beautifully clever book and says thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, do you know, oddly, I think it's just several things or a few things kind of collapsed into one. Books come from weird places. I think at the time I was halfway through writing Augustown and got stuck. And it just so happened that the point in Augustown where I got stuck was the point where the Rastas in the community are marching. Uh, and and so I think I was trying to work my way out from there. So it means that in my bed at night, I'm going thinking, why do the Rastas leave this community? So I was in the way that I do, just reading all these books on Rastafari and the beginning of the Rastafari movement, blah blah blah. It was. I was obsessed with it, and at some point I took a break from that. And oh Jesus, I think that's Alexa. That's Alexa in the background that was just suddenly triggered for whatever reason. I'm sorry.
Technological accidents in these strange times. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, I ended up reading this book called The Power of Maps, which was, it was just a random book that I picked up one day and read, which was just mind blowing about just how maps are conceived and how they're configured, and all the brilliant things about maps. That the most interesting thing about a map is never what's on the map, but what's not on the map. Why did the cartographer not see that? Why did the cartographer not represent this place or that place? And those absences have everything to do with power, really. So that was fascinating. And I remember reading this book just being and connecting with so much of it. And somehow, in that state of having so much of Rastafari in my head and going to bed with this new book about maps, the two things literally just went to bed with each other. And I woke up. It's never happened like this, but I woke up one night and the whole sentence just came out in my head. The cartographer tries to map a way to Zion. and it was absolutely clear, and I sat down and started writing the book. So I paused Augustown, and I wrote the Cartographer.
Kind of pressurized dreaming from taking the book to bed, sort of thing.
Yeah. From taking two influences that just married perfectly. So there's happenstance. There's happenstance in a way.
Yeah. Got another question from the audience, a name that may be familiar to you. Katie Evans Bush wants to know, what do you feel writing can do now in these interesting times?
I don't know if I have faith in writing these days. I do have faith in reading. You know, I have more faith in that, in just the openness of. I mean, as we all do. I mean, This is the way I've become British. That every answer that I actually do feel, and I feel deeply, I am guarding myself from saying that because it feels too earnest. And I want to seem more clever and off fair with things. But I think, given just what an absolute shit show this year has been, and what the world has been, and America right now, I think and it's obvious things that everyone says just about how we've really come to a point that we take extreme positions, that the right is more right than it has ever been, and the left is more left than it has ever been, and we have never been as divided as we are now. And you see it on social media, just the inability that I find anyone expressing an opinion just slightly different to what I think. My immediate thought is, oh God, block him. I don't need this in my life.
Yeah.
And I've really been thinking about how to not fall into that trap of being that divisive, and I've just been forcing myself to read it, just to go back to that thing of taking a breather, taking a step back, and immersing myself into the opinions of others, into not reading it as a meme, but reading it as a book, like living with someone else's mind, living with how carefully someone thinks through things, and that I continue to have faith in. I continue to have faith in just the practice of reading.
Yeah.
The practice of living with a book and living with someone else's thoughts, and that certainly is some of what's helping me get through this moment. To have faith in my own writing is a weird ego that I can't fall into right now, but I'm sure it's helpful. But probably I don't know if people are getting through. Have you been writing in this period? I certainly haven't.
I stopped. I personally stopped in about May, and I've only finally started again.
Good for you.
Intermittently.
Yeah.
But I mean, you haven't written at all then since
not
the beginning of this.
Nothing significant. I've been editing, but no significant new piece of writing now.
No, that's tough. I mean, because there's a. I mean, I certainly felt it. There was that kind of weight of stuff building up, but no. No vent.
Absolutely.
And the only vent that it came out of was very weak and thin and hissed unpleasantly. So that's changed, fortunately, and may it do so soon for you.
Yeah.
I think on that note, we should draw to a close. But given that you were saying about living with another person's mind, would you finish us with one more poem from the book?
Oh, all right. What do you All right, let's go back to the beginning of that collection. So here's a poem that I don't think I quite understand it, and I've always liked it. And I think I'm expressing something that I really do believe and want to say. And yeah. So this is one of the very first poems in the collection. It's Here That Was Here Before. Yeah. I can't, as I said, I can't give you a background to the poem because I can't quite explain it myself. Here that was here before. Here that was here before the invention of doors, which was the invention of the outdoors. Sorry.
Caroline, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Here that was here before the invention of doors, which was the invention of the outdoors. Before the invention of town, which was the invention of the outskirts, the peripheries. Before the invention of gates, which was the invention of the outside, the outsider, the barbarians in wait. It should be noted there are many kinds of gates and many kinds of barbarians in Jamaica. The gates of Kingston produce a kind offensively called Butu. Here, that was here before the invention of keys, which was the invention of a lie. The world was somewhere else and we could close a door to it. Before the invention of curtains, which was the invention of spying nervously in your own backyard at night after the dogs bark, the motion sensor lights come on. You can see everything except what is behind the curtains. Before the invention of burglar bars, which was the invention of an accidental art installation in Hopasas, Jamaica, a house surrounded entirely by steel, like a dollhouse in a birdcage. Before the invention of boundaries, which was the invention of fences and also the invention of countries being the invention of men wearing clothes the color of trees, patrolling the arbitrary lines, the dark promise of their rifles. Before the invention of stamps, which was the invention of bureaucracy, which was the invention of embassies, which was the invention of old women gathered hopelessly on Hope Road, the quartz of their sweat glistening on their foreheads. And hair that was here before the invention of hair, which was the invention of there, before the invention of distance, which was the invention of letters tear stained, held in the hands of the women gathered hopelessly on Hope Road, before the invention of place, which was the invention of the world as we know it now, before the invention of time, which was at once the invention of now and the invention of after and the invention of before, here that is here in the now, and that was here in the before, and that shall be here in the after, that shall hold our bodies, our cities, our outdated stamps in its endless cycle of green and brown and flower and thorn and stone.
Wow, thank you very much, Kei Miller. That's an extraordinary reading and a very illuminating set of answers. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
And for anyone interested, Stroud Bookshop will have copies of In Nearby Bushes available from Carcanet. So go and buy them, or at least ring them and get it ordered in these strange times. And thank you to Stroud Arts Festival for sponsoring this. Thank you to everyone listening, but again, particularly, thank you, Kei Miller.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you so much. That was just enthralling, and it reminds me that although we call this Stroud Book Festival, it is so much a festival of words as well, and you know what words can do. And what you were saying about reading there, I I was thinking of a quote of Elif Shafak where she says, "We need to be more intellectually nomadic," and it felt like you were expressing something very similar. So yes, as Adam said, you can buy Kai's collection, wonderful collection in Nearby Bushes from Stroud Bookshop. Please buy it from them or from your local independent bookseller at this very challenging time for independent retailers. If you've enjoyed this event and you would like to support Stroud Book Festival, perhaps by donating what you might have paid for a ticket tonight, details of how to do this are on our website, stroudbookfestival.org.uk. Tomorrow we present a full day of events for both children and adults, including a family event with TV comedian and actor Ben Miller, Joanna Trollope talking about her latest novel, an exclusive pre-recorded interview with Kath Kidston filmed at her home, a chance to hear about a novel tipped to be one of next year's hottest with Anna Bailey, and an in-conversation between me and Michael Cashman, actor, politician and activist extraordinaire. Please do join us then. And at 10 p.m. tonight, don't forget our festival book at bedtime, Alice Jolly's Mary Ann Sate Imbecile, brought to you by Red Dog Productions. For now, it's good night from Stroud Book Festival.